Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest started competing in 2015 with little to no experience in bodybuilding and fell in love with the sport after that show. And she went on to continue competing and eventually earn her pro card at Universe in 2019, which was her fourth national show. This athlete has a passion for helping other ladies to find their inner confidence and be that beam of light on stage through her posing and coaching business. Welcome to the show, KALEY HOUDYSHELL. How are you doing?
I'm so good, Celeste. I'm very, very excited to be on here with you.
I'm so happy to have you. And seriously, I think we're going to have such a great conversation. There's a lot I know a lot of your followers probably want to catch up on with you because I'm one of them. And I'm like so curious about what life's been like for you since it's been a couple years since you've stepped on stage. But before we get into all of that, I always gotta ask if there's anything you do or maybe think about or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
It's such a good one. And oddly enough, yes, it's been almost or over 2 years since stepping on stage. So, kind of rituals I think are ever evolving. But one of my biggest things is to really reflect. So, I take time behind stage right before going on, obviously going through posing, but just mentally reflecting on the journey and my why and understanding my love for it and really honing into that passion. And then as soon as I obviously step on stage, I'm ready to go and bring myself, my personality, and really just my why to the stage.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think connecting to that passion goes to what we had included in the intro and what your mission is, which is to help other people to be that beam of light on stage. I think when you have passion, that does shine through. So when did you get into bodybuilding and how did that become a passion for you?
Yeah. Gosh, in 2015, I had moved to California and I had done, so I'm taller. I'm one of the taller
Mhm.
girls, 5'8.5". And I had done runway modeling. So I went to
Oh,
college for
wow.
actually fashion merchandise. I had done runway shows. I'd wanted to do modeling, but I honestly wasn't even tall enough for runway, but would do some things for local shows.
Mhm.
And my love for fashion and just being able to strut myself and be my most confident. And also, I'm very competitive. So I did sports and then did some kind of extracurricular in college. But it wasn't until I came to California and was introduced to bodybuilding by a significant other who was going through it himself. And he said, "Hey, why don't you do it?" And at that time, I said, "No, no, no. Like, I'll support you. I think that's awesome. I just want to actually get a trainer, maybe." And I remember finding similar girls that are in the industry and be like, "I just want to look like this." I was tiny. So 5'8.5", but like 110 pounds. Like I'm
Holy moly.
tiny. And I remember too growing up that I never wanted to get over 100 pounds, which again, crazy now. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I was a thick bug, essentially. I was just nothing. I wasn't even doing cardio. I didn't really work out ever. I ate whatever I wanted in a way. Like I just,
Mhm.
I definitely did not live that lifestyle, but it was more of the I just was focused around a weight and a look of kind of that fashion look.
Yeah.
And then, so I wanted to certainly get into a trainer, especially being out in California. I'm from the Midwest, so just a very different lifestyle, and the people, the energy around there was different. So I was going to get a trainer anyways to just start to kind of be a little more active like I enjoy doing. And I started researching kind of the bodybuilding and realized that it was two things that I mentally am really good at, which is being competitive
Mm.
and giving myself that competitive goal. And then I knew that I could walk on a runway in a bikini. I had done it before, more of a fashion runway, but hey, I knew I could do that. And instead of just saying, oh, I want to look like this person, it kind of gave me even more of a goal, which I'm very, very goal driven and more competitive with myself. So I ended up sharing the same coach, actually, my first coach, with my significant other at the time. And so we ended up prepping to our first shows together. So it was kind of like all combined on what made me even get into bodybuilding and be introduced to the industry, because I had not been even introduced to anyone really before that.
Wow, that's an incredible way to start, especially given your history as a runway model.
Mhm.
And loving fashion too, because in 2015, bodybuilding wasn't really glammy,
Sure.
a lot of the suits were, still kind of no, they were not off the rack suits, that was kinda like Ravish Sans was becoming quite popular,
Yes.
but I remember, my first show was also 2015, and I just wore a suit that sparkled, but it didn't have stones or anything, so it's interesting that your love of fashion didn't draw you to something else like pageants or the other types of, fitness competitions that include fashion.
Well, and so interesting enough, when I was younger,
Uh-huh.
I was going to do a pageant, but I also am very, I don't really know how to say it, but I'm not super into I'm just not into the pageantry of it.
Yeah.
And um, I just knew that deep down that wasn't really who I am and what I represent. So being able to really, because ultimately what made me fall in love is the fact that I was able to shape my body into curves with a muscular build. I had been such a small, petite, tall girl that I mean, I was questioned a lot. I've never had necessarily like an eating disorder, but I was
Mhm.
questioned often. Like, do you even
Yeah,
eat? Are you this? Are you that? And I wasn't. And it was, you never want to hear that or be asked that or be, someone look at you and that's what they think. So
right.
it gave me a little bit more than just pageantry. And then but that's why too, I think I was drawn to posing so much and the presentation of it and the efforts that you're able to bring out in your posing and in your routine. So it's not just the process up to the stage, but how do you bring you out? And oh my goodness, you find you in the entire process and then beyond that.
What did you learn or what have you learned about yourself through this process?
A lot.
I know that's a loaded question for 10 years later.
I know, gosh. You learn obviously resilience. So everyone's journey is different. Mine personally, I was very blessed in the fact with the NPC, I had an amazing first coach and experience who he was both my coach and my trainer. and built me up. Like I said, I was a tiny 110-pound girl and 5'8.5", and so he completely built me up as much as he could, at that point in time. And I basically am very coachable. I listened to everything that he said, and did whatever I needed to do. Again, I'm competitive. I did not want to get on stage thinking that I didn't do something or cheated myself or anything. So I did everything I needed to do. I practiced posing. I definitely didn't want to get on stage and not be confident in what I was presenting and how. And so I understood the goal. I understood what it took at that point in time. And I was lucky enough that my very first show, I placed third. And at that point in time, top three were nationally qualified. But I also, again, had a coach that was very reasonable and said, yes, you're nationally qualified, but we have some growth that needs to happen in order for you to truly be competitive at a national level. And I said, absolutely. So then went on, took a bit of an improvement season, understood too, I had to go through understanding now nutrition and food, and just like any beginner, especially coming from a lifestyle of never really caring or knowing what I was eating, to constantly looking at all the ingredients now and the macros, and being very, very cautious and aware of what I'm eating, what activity I'm doing. I didn't want to blow up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so much of your mental aspect than just the actual going and training and cardio and eating. All of it is pretty much, I would say, mental. And so I had to really tap into, again, why am I doing this? Who, who am I doing this for, when ultimately it's myself? And really that self-love and gaining my own confidence in me and my own identity. Um, and then I went on to finally compete, and I took an overall. Then I placed first. The other times that I did the NPC shows, and then went straight into nationals. Again, I said in my mind that I'm not going to step on a national level stage until I know I'm competitive. And sure enough, I stepped on, I placed third, and these shows were top two, went pro. So I kept losing actually to a team member of mine. So at that point, I was with Body by O. And um, so the first two, I went on, took third place at my national shows. Then I went to nationals when they were in Miami, and I placed fourth, but it was a very tight top four. And then after that, it was okay, I need a break, obviously, but I'm going to go into about whatever month improvement season and take the judges' feedback and do whatever I need to do. So, in that, I always have a song, kind of like a theme song or a prep song.
Uh-huh.
For that prep, it was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, and I just really put on my blinders and did whatever it took within reason, but whatever it took ultimately and mentally. And honestly, it was one of the easiest, most stress-free preps I had. And I remember talking to one of the competitors at a show that asked me, "Hey, you're going to Universe, but then are you gonna do USA's after?" And I said, "No, I'm going to Universe. I'm going pro." Like, there was nothing in my mind that said I'm going to keep doing national shows. That was it. I had no plans or intentions or anything at all. Um, And that's what I did. So I went to nationals, to universe, and then I went pro. So to me, I just realized how much when I make those intentions and truly believe in myself, that you can make it happen and you will make it happen. So a lot of it has been confidence in myself and just truly, in a way, having those, placing those true intentions that I believe in.
That's so powerful, and it's interesting you say this because I think it's something a lot of competitors struggle with when planning their seasons when they're at the national level. On
Mhm,
one hand, they want to just do the national show, get their pro card, and plan for a pro debut.
mhm,
On the other hand, they're thinking, well, there's a possibility I won't get my pro card, and I might need to plan for doing these other shows, these other national shows. And that's a tricky balance because you don't want to talk your mind out of the belief that you will win and that you will earn your pro card. You also don't want to set yourself up where you're not prepared to potentially go do another show if you need to. So, what do you recommend to your clients, or what would you say to someone in that position, like for navigating and planning that?
I think so going into my first national show, or any show for that matter, to be honest, your first show, even second show or first show with a new coach, whatever it is, to me, it's hard to have any sort of expectation. Once you tap on those expectations, or kind of that intentional, I'm winning this show as a first time competitor, that's not as realistic unless you really believe it, and then it is, and that does happen, but you need to be reasonable, I think, with what you are believing in. However, the more you believe it, so as far as the national shows, I had already done 3. I had already gotten feedback from the judge. I had literally actually gotten additional feedback from the judge based on pictures because I had changed up my posing, and I would say that I was more calculated with my intention, or sort of what I was manifesting, and it was, again, a reasonable thing to truly mindfully say, I'm going into this national show. I've given this amount of time. I have done all these different steps in order to get to that point. This that there's no reason now that I shouldn't.
Mhm.
So it is hard. Like you say, I am a firm believer in something that I learned during probably my second prep, on how important it is to truly visualize what that looks like. Or I was just talking to another pro bikini, one of my friends, and really embracing when you're training. So
Hmm.
training as if you're a pro already. If you're a pro, how are you training? Or for me, so I'm not an Olympian yet, but I need to train as if I am one and then become one. So same thing with becoming a pro. Train as if you're a pro already, but also visualize that moment that you step on stage. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? Visualize, how do you feel? Every single movement, almost as if you're inside yourself, and then an out of body visualization. And this, I don't know,
Mhm.
I actually did not meditate until recently, but anyone that is meditating, like, use that time too to truly visualize every single aspect and area. And the more that you visualize it, the more real it is, and the more that that reality becomes yours.
It's almost as though your physical body can recognize the experience and make it more real because it's been primed to identify things that align with it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is something you said that has been more recent for you from a meditative standpoint, but that you did use and you would recommend the use of visualization to support you, along with calculated season planning based on feedback and what your coaches get saying and giving to you. And you have now been training as though you're an Olympian. So how does that look compared to when you were training for being a pro?
It is, well, so I'm actually kind of in a transitional phase right at the moment. I
Mhm.
had the past 2 years, essentially life happened.
Yeah.
My career is not at all fitness related, so it truly consumed me. As an Olympian, majority of the Olympian ladies have the you have to commit so much time and obviously energy towards your prep, your structure, your lifestyle. And unfortunately, my career did not allow for that. So it wasn't all aligning. So I'm actually transitioning out of that career and into more of a full-time commitment to fitness and really the industry as a whole. But that will allow me the time instead of cramming in training my training splits, I'll have a more consistent schedule where I didn't have that. Being able to really push myself and mentally not allowing certain things to block my own growth. So certain insecurities of mine or things that a lot of us, especially I feel like women, we can be very fragile and take things more personally or emotional. And I know that I do that for a fact. So if I, again, and I'm competitive, especially with myself, and I'm hard on myself. So if, I'm trying to grow a certain area of my body, well, obviously that's a weakness. Well, I'm going to get more frustrated and upset during certain training sessions when I'm doing that part of my body, but it's really just generally understanding and mentally taking those blocks out and saying, no, like, this is what's going to make you an Olympian. This is what makes you an Olympian. This is what sets you apart. This is my growth. So just a lot of shifts. And like I said, I'm in that transitional period, but there's a lot of shifts and movements that are taking place now for me that will allow so much more to open up and have that consistency with food. And the other big thing is prioritizing yourself. And
Mm.
it's hard for a lot of us, especially women, I feel like, because we're very nurturing and we want to take care of everyone else before us, but we have to put ourselves first in our growth and our happiness. And that will ultimately trickle to everyone else. But putting myself first is another key thing that I feel like I didn't do necessarily on the NPC and even up until recently.
What did you have to come to terms with or maybe realize in order to see the benefit of prioritizing yourself?
That is, I think, just past experiences with people in general, a lot of different relationships, but even coaches, I guess, sort of. So I've had 3 coaches. One was my original one and trainer and friend, and he was amazing. So Terry back in California. Then I jumped to Camodo and I was very involved with Body by O, loved them. Like they were family, Kim was family, and he meant well. Then I just wanted someone different. After my last pro season, I didn't do very well that season. but I wanted like a different set of eyes. Um, but I didn't actually use that coach for anything but more of a lifestyle slash let's just see, you know, what he thinks and where we can go. So I didn't truly prep with him. Um, but given those, it was kind of the different techniques and then understanding that in order to be very, very, very successful, it is okay to say no to certain things. It's okay. I learned this like my last kind of relationship. It's okay to say, no, I don't want to go out. I want to take an Epsom salt bath instead and be alone by myself. Um, or that I need to go training or I need to eat this food. No, I don't want to go out and I don't want to necessarily be social when other people are. So, and not feeling bad. Um, that also, I'm very, very much a believer that you getting into this industry, if you do fall in love with it because of how it aligns with the lifestyle in general, you may find obviously certain individuals that no longer really suit you and your goals and where you want to go in life. Um, but that's the same thing as just prioritizing yourself and not allowing anyone to choose what's best for you. The only person that that is going to be yourself. And what makes you happiest and what makes you your strongest and what gives you or allows you the ability to go the next level is yourself, how you feel, and then who you surround yourself with. So there it's kind of a lot all scattered. There wasn't like a specific aha moment necessarily, but it's just been a lot of experiences that I've had with individuals and just past opportunities. I call them opportunities because it's just learning and growth that I've received from them.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's easy to look back and say, well, I can't even believe I tolerated that or
Mm,
went through that or thought that way or did those things. But a lot of the times those experiences served us and allowed us to, like you said, learn and to grow. And they were opportunities of revealing and learning more about ourselves. And
mm,
it seems like in your case, you had to learn to set boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself too, to uphold your commitments to yourself and to make sure you were having healthy relationships. I know you've also talked about some experiences from your past that were difficult or toxic or even hurtful, like bullying and things of that
mm.
nature. Do you mind speaking to some of those experiences and how you've utilized them to grow for yourself also?
Absolutely. That is so being an advocate more so for anti-bullying is very much near and dear to my heart. As a teenager, I was the one bullied, and so much so that I was in one high school and had to transfer to another one because it was just not conducive to me, and it was either that or something much worse, I would imagine. But knowing that, so I'm the kind of person who, no matter what happens, so first of all, I don't regret anything. And I don't hate anyone. I might dislike their choices, but I try very, very hard to find the positive and light in any situation and any person. And even more so because I went through what I did when I was younger. And now you see that I am in this bodybuilding industry I am an IFBB bikini professional. I grace the stage. I love it. I feel beautiful. To have that and look back on the days that, as again, I'm a teenager in high school, but also the biggest thing too with the fitness industry, the bodybuilding industry, there are it's a huge community. It's a huge community, and yes, we're competing amongst each other, but we also are a community and should be there lifting each other up. So a huge component of me being a posing coach, for instance, is really, really, really diving into these ladies who may not have the most confidence. They might not see the beauty in themselves that they already possess and really pulling that out. So it's wonderful that they're getting into the best shape of their lives possibly, and they look and they feel good, but to really dive in and to be able to help bring that light out of anyone and coming from a place several years ago that there's negative people out there, but even the negative ones, it's trying to find their lights and to switch it
Mhm.
in any instance. And so I always try to obviously be an advocate for all, like I love um, hearing about all that you do with bringing women together and empowering them. This is such a movement to empower women and let them be them and let them shine so bright. One day I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how I can really help other women who may not feel the best about themselves and could be seeking alternative ways, but let me show them their light. Like, let me show them that every single woman, each of us, are beautiful in our own way. And so anything that I can do to share that with them and pull that out of them, I will.
That's amazing. I think your compassion from what you experienced allows you to also look beyond what someone might be bringing on the surface, whether that's fears or
Mm.
insecurities, and help them to, like you said, shine their light and really build that confidence. When you were bullied in high school, I imagine it had to be really bad to have to consider and actually move schools. Were there any notable experiences that you feel like really shaped how you view yourself now or how you viewed yourself before?
There was, but so there was one experience in high school that happened, and it was a multitude of things and what was being said. Some stuff was based on appearance, but ultimately what it came down to, especially as now I'm an adult and kind of go back in time and see what happened, there's a lot of there's a lot of insecure children,
Mhm.
but it's still in us. So there's a lot of insecurities and jealousy that then bring out just such evil sides in people. I personally have just been very adamant that I don't want to be the evil in the world. I want to be the light. So just sort of accepting and acknowledging that. I will say I personally, um, I would say like 7, 8, 9 months ago, I started going and talking to more of a life coach. I wanted someone that was a little more holistic, not necessarily a psychologist or science based. I wanted it to be more spiritual, but it dove into really who I am to my core and what is sort of my highest excitement, my highest self. So kind of going through all of that has eliminated, I guess, what back then, but why I also because I very easily, because of things that happened in high school, I could have easily become a bully. Okay. I could have become very mean, very aggressive, I could have been them. I could have become them, but I chose not to. And so I also expect others to allow them the opportunity to choose the light. Not everyone will, but if I can give them the opportunity or kind of the let me show you the way, I do, because there is another way. So I think some don't have that resource at times, and it's sad. I just, there should we should be spreading love. We should be encouraging others. We're all humans. We all have flaws, but we have such strengths, and when we combine them, it's that is the beauty of the world.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think that there are a lot of people who are hurting, and then that ends up leading to hurting others for some. And it sounds like you turned it into helping others, which is really beautiful. And you did encounter some difficult relationships and experiences, but you've really learned along the way. And in the last 3 years, or I should even say maybe we go back even before that, prior to those 3 years, or soon to be 3 years off, you
Yeah.
had not only competed 3 times, but you also had landed your dream job at the time. You had went to multiple countries and fell in love, and there was a lot that changed all at once. And I was wondering how you navigated all of those things while competing, and then how your life has changed since going from that to taking time away.
Yeah. Like a whirlwind, but also I feel like I'm a totally different person because I am now. Um, uh, trying to think of timeline wise, but basically, like the last time that I was competing, so I lived in California and then COVID happened. So still was there. I was still working for the same company at the time. And then I ended up competing some more during 2020 to 2021. Then I quit my job because I didn't think they were giving me the opportunity that I deserved. So I just quit
Mhm.
and ended up back with the same company, but they ended up extending me the opportunity that I felt was appropriate for me.
Yeah.
And my significant other at this time, he was from the East Coast. So he wa- wanted to come back to the East Coast. So that job opportunity actually was on the East Coast. So we ended up moving to Virginia. So I moved to Virginia,
Wow.
which definitely was not part of my bucket list at all.
Uh-huh.
Um, but okay, I moved there. So again, everything happens for a reason. I moved there. That boyfriend and I actually ended up not lasting, but I think a month or two there. And
Oh,
so we went
wow.
our separate ways.
What a big change.
Yeah.
You move
Um,
across the country for someone and that happens, that's a challenge.
yeah, but ultimately I went into prep mode and a lot of my preps were surrounded by me sort of um, hiding from other things. So I would very much dive into a prep and anything else around me, my relationship, my job, anything would just kind of be they didn't matter as much because I dove into that and I was essentially just masking things and not dealing with some reality of what was going on.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And then I ended up meeting someone in Virginia,
Wow.
and that's who I ended up traveling. So I'd always wanted to go to Europe and kind of backpack, but basically just jump around to places.
Wow.
And his mentality was basically like, okay, whatever, I'm game for whatever, even though
Mhm.
when we got over there, he was freaking out because my way of travel was, hey, we booked a flight here, we booked a flight out of this
Uh-huh.
area, but from A to all the way Z, I don't have any idea. We don't have any lodging yet. Like,
Oh my goodness.
we are on an adventure. And that's what it was. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I could have had for myself. And yeah, that was super cool. So I love traveling and just seeing other cultures and other areas of the world and how people are and do and the food and all of that. Um, but then that relationship did not work out, but it did land me in Tampa and Clearwater. So I ended up getting a job. Like one of my bucket list jobs was there. So transferred to Tampa Clearwater. This is still with my ex. But that relationship was meant to be so, but I wasn't competing here. So I was just, there's a lot of work, a lot of work. And then the relationship I now realize was I'm grateful for the experiences, but it also just taught me how much like that individual and I were not aligned on anything, and we were very combative because we weren't aligned. So at the end of the day, no one's a bad person or anything. It's just we weren't aligned, and I sort of lost myself in that relationship. And once it was cut out, I realized a lot from my last relationship after, yes, I traveled. Yes, I lived life to the fullest. I was actually introduced to EDC, kind of those like EDM festivals, and really like for me, when I'm dancing, I feel super free and like that little girl comes out of me and I just feel at peace and so calm, similar to preps, you're
Mhm.
hiding through something. Well, it took me all these years. I mean, when I stopped competing in 2022 or
Mhm.
2021, um, I I just wasn't I didn't love it anymore at the time, and I also didn't really know who I was for the past 2, 3 years until, again, cut off that relationship, started to talk to this life coach, and just dive into more of who I am, and again, my why, and now bringing me into training again and eating consistently and being on this more structured regimen, which I thrive in. But I realized wholeheartedly I had to do this for myself. So it's kind of where, too, like, I have to do this for myself, not because I'm hiding from something, not because someone else wants me to do it. I have to be doing this because I love it and because it's for me and my motivation. I want to grow because I want to grow. I want to be an Olympian because I want to be an Olympian. All of this has to be me. And it at first was hard to even consider that because I had been told, certain selfish tendencies,
Mm.
but I now realize, like, no, I have to. I have to love myself, and I do have to do things for me. And it's not selfish, it's actually a very positive effort. And then taking that to the next level. And it just took a lot of self-discovery to get to where I am today. I mean, now I'm in Miami, of all places, which is another place that I actually used to say I would never move to or live in, but I love it. And
Wow.
I love it here. I love the energy. And again, it's kind of that whole your mentality is going to shape your reality. Like if
Mhm.
you're stuck in a rut and feeling like everything is negative and bad, and then it's going to be. But I very much took, my last relationship, which had very amazing experiences, like I said, traveled,
Mhm.
but I learned a lot from the areas that did not align with who I am and where I lost myself because I was, wanting to be someone for someone instead of wanting to
Mm.
be me for me.
Wow.
So now that brings me to why I am very much getting back into the groove of training. And I love the process. I love being able to grow my own body, but even me mentally. My career is completely changing. So I'm still in the same industry as I've been, but there's plans to leave it entirely and go into full-time assisting um, competitors, lifestyle competitors, being more available to go to shows and support the competitors there, travel, obviously going back to California. A lot of my friends are there, traveling
Yeah.
all over, and there is a goal in mind to travel actually for a show outside of the US. So combining my passion of travel and competing. So just an abundance of very, very positive things that are definitely taking place in this new year.
Wow. All of this is so awesome to hear. I think sometimes we feel like we have to just share all the good things instead of sharing some of the not so good that also led to the really good. So
Yes.
I admire that you share everything you did with your past and where you are now and just this journey you've been on because sometimes we can fear judgment. And I know, like, for me personally, I went from like I'll share I had an 8-year relationship, which was wonderful until it was terrible. And I
Right.
ended up being like betrayed. And then I hopped into oh my gosh, the worst. It was horrible, a horrible relationship. I mean, it was good at times, but the good made the bad. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It was like I highlighted all the good because I wanted to believe it was good because I was just like, well, this
Yes.
is what I have to accept. And I tolerated so many things that now looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? And it kind of goes aligned with what you were saying. There was a self-sacrificial aspect to it that there's a difference between loving your partner the way that, and I'm a Jesus freak, so I'm like loving your partner the way Jesus calls us to, or loving your partner
Sure.
because and sacrificing yourself instead of being self-sacrificial in a way that uplifts them and makes them more like Jesus and shine their
Yeah.
light more versus completely dimming your own. And so um, I was in a really negative relationship and it wasn't even like a couple months. Well, there was many months of trying to get out of that, but then I was like, I'm done. I will never date again. I don't want anything to do with anybody. And now I'm married.
Yes.
So I'm like, and this was within the span
Yeah.
of not even a year. Like, I met the man of my
I
dreams,
know.
and I'm like,
Well, and that ironically is similar to my last relationship. Was it was almost 2.5 years or whatever.
yeah.
And the day that we went no contact, I actually met my person now who at that
Uh-huh.
time I was very like, there's no way that
Mhm.
I can be moving on. Like, there's no way I can have these feelings. Like, why is this? This is literally, I'm not at all feeding him anything to say. I'm just listening to who he is
Yeah.
at the core. And he's sharing just to the epitome of what who he is, and I'm able to be me, like who I really want to be. And it
Mhm.
was just crazy. And now he's actually moved to Miami, so it happened very fast. But at the same time, I'm like, if look, if if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if I'm happy as ever, like uh, everything else is aligning. So if I needed more, and probably similar to your situation,
Mhm.
even though, I went no contact on this day, then
Yep.
however months, almost probably a good 9 months to a year prior to that, it was just a lot of negativity and not
Uh-huh.
not really a relationship at that time.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I look back and I'm like, what was that? And
Yeah.
we're
You know
so
what?
entrenched in the idea of it. So,
But I also feel though everything, and so this is why now I'm very much in the mindset of gratitude for that experience, whether it was
mhm.
like crazy and gut wrenching at the time. I am so grateful because it truly grew me. It strengthened me and it prepped me for my relationship now. And there's certain
Yes.
things like being um certain affirmations or like physical touch or certain things that I think I had longed for, but I would constantly say, no, 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 I don't do that, or I don't need that. But I really do. And I was
Yes.
just nervous because I think I was just insecure in certain relationships or just in myself to be able to show that. Because to me, it's a very, like, those are some of it's very vulnerable sides of me. And to be able to trust
Yep.
another man to be able to hold my heart and my feelings and emotions and to be heard and seen, all of that stuff. I've now learned exactly what I need and what I don't need and how big communication is. Like,
Mhm.
whether or not it's going to hurt the person's feelings, communicate it. Like,
Yeah.
in any relationship, friendships,
Yes.
romantic relationships, coaching, like anything.
Yeah. You're right. And like from all of those levels, when you approach things with honesty, with truth, with straightforward love, out of respect for them, out of desire for that relationship that you have with that person, it shows and demonstrates a willingness to grow together and to support that growth versus I am going to handle this and manage this and just try to figure it out on my own. And I think when you have such a tight grip on something, you're bound to get tired and you open your hand and you realize what you've been holding on to wasn't it was not worth holding on to that long. Maybe it was even really sharp and cut your
Oh,
hand
yeah.
open, but you were so committed to
Yeah.
holding it
Yeah.
and then you release it and sure there's wounds and there's difficulties, but something I like you said, having gratitude, I look back and I'm like, I understand my husband now better
Mhm.
because of what I went through before, because of his own previous experiences. Like that. I feel that God was preparing me even more for him because he put me through something that through compassion and empathy, I could better relate to my husband and
Absolutely.
support him and see those things. And the other thing I realized too is time being a construct that we've made certain rules about in society is such a limiting factor. I think it sometimes can be indicative of a limiting belief. Well, yes, we need to practice delayed gratification and taking our time and being mindful. I don't think you necessarily have to subscribe to the societal timelines on things like love and
Mhm.
passion. Just like someone might have an idea to start a business and launch it the next month, I think the same thing can be true where someone has a desire to connect with someone and it can really take off. And there might be ups and downs and sideways, but if that commitment is valuable and means something and you trust yourself, then whatever everybody else says, it doesn't really matter because you know what is true and you've acted on the truth. So when you're in your current
Exactly.
situation now, you can say, "Well, I have no shame because it's brought me here and I'm happier than I've ever been,"
Correct.
which is so incredible. And you've grown so much. You said multiple times you've really invested a lot into your internal growth
Mhm.
and you've enjoyed so much of life. And my message to everybody is to build more than just a body. And I think when we talk about
Yeah.
building more than just a body, it doesn't mean sacrifice or say goodbye to the body. It means doing more than just that. And so you were able to travel, you've been able to consistently build yourself from the inside and the outside. You have transformed your life, you're transforming your career in a way that you see fit for your passion, for your desires. And now you're in that zone of getting into competing again and getting back to step on stage. So, what's this transition been like? You said you're in a transition phase. So, what's that been like knowing you're kind of coming out of this time away and you're entering into this new season?
It is well, it's I'm so impatient at times, but I'm trying very hard to be patient, but it's so tough, and this is even, like, the visualizations when it becomes so real, and you're like, "It's literally right here, like, I'm living it," but you're not just yet, but you're putting all these different things into place. For me, even just getting back into the swing of because I was coming out of a very inconsistent training. I was lucky to train twice a week, 3 times a week, like, just it wasn't the best for me and my well-being, truly. So being more consistent and understanding what is in place right now, what's to come, what still needs to happen, of course, too. And I'm still literally doing my career. And look, I'm a leader. I run a full department and I have to be there for my staff currently and help lift them up. So I'm unfortunately in a very toxic environment, but every single day that it doesn't break me, it's strengthening me. And it is now I see more clearly that all of this combined, this corporate energy, is going to very much relate and allow what I truly believe in to grow. The other thing too with competing a lot of times is it's not so it is for me, obviously, this time, but a big joy that I get. So my happiness comes from being able to compete with other ladies that I am posing. So one of the coolest things is to have my posing clients backstage with me and we're all celebrating that we just got off stage together. Like it's so fun and cool. And like I'm not the kind of person I'm just another competitor, okay? Yes, I'm a pro. I have
Mhm.
maybe a little more experience, but at the end of the day, I'm just like you. I have the same nervous tics, I'm sure. I have the same emotions surrounding prep and the full journey, the highs, the lows. So I really want always my any of my competitor or my posing girls, competitor girls, um, coming into the future, lifestyle, to know that I'm relatable and that they,
Mhm.
just like I do with my team now, like open door policy. Nothing is too much, too less. Like I'm here to make their life better and
Love that.
make them feel better and bring out their happiness and really dive into that. So
Hmm.
yeah, the transition's really cool because I'm just so excited and like weight has been lifted, obviously, because now I'm truly going towards something that again I believe in, I'm passionate about, I love it. Like everyone says, you're not working when it's literally a passion, work a day. And that's the truth. So I'm working towards living that life and I'm working for me. So not just competing for me, but I'm working for me and for my happiness and for my passion.
Wow. I think that fits the theme of so much that has really transformed for you in your life is not putting yourself in a position where your light is dimmed. And
Mm.
that's allowing you to encourage and inspire others to also shine. I think your multiple decisions to transform and change and pivot in your life has allowed you to see the value you bring and not to dim that. And now you're providing such a support for other people and you see the value and the benefit in doing that, which takes so much courage, really, because the predictable thing would be to stay in what you know, which is maybe dimming yourself and not serving in that way, but instead you're taking a leap of faith. And I imagine that's had an influence on your coaching. And of course, then, and I don't want to necessarily breeze over what you just said, but it also takes me back to the fact that you were a runway model.
Yes.
And I imagine that probably, or maybe I'm totally off base, but does that influence how you approach your posing or posing coaching?
Oh yeah. Um, yes. As far as like the transitional or
Like, how does the previous history in runway modeling impact your posing coaching and how you pose on stage?
that, that is just more of a nice ability to flow and stand up straight and just be confident. My biggest takeaway, so this is something that I sort of talk through with the ladies, but
Mhm.
again, no posing routine is truly like cookie cutter. Not every, there's no one posing routine that's exactly the same because no one is exactly the same. So for me, even runway, there was one walk down, walk back. Sometimes you're smiling, sometimes you're not. It's really more of displaying your outfit or whatever fashion that you're wearing, hairstyle, but more so in bikini and those presentations, the judges want to see your personality. And the more that you are not aligned with your personality, the more awkward and you're not going to be mobile and it's going to show in an adverse way. So
Mhm.
it's a big thing. The runway has just been, hey, like for me, I was just a little more confident getting on stage with a bikini on in front of people, and it didn't really impact me as much. But I know others, it's the ones, I mean, when I was in Virginia, for instance, I had clients who are in military, and military women are hardcore and
Mm.
unbelievable women who really wanted to showcase their femininity and
Yeah.
and bring that side out of them, but they were feared of judgment, and so it was really my task at hand or my goal, not just to give them a beautiful presentation, even though a lot of them also similar to like cheerleader where it's very sharp movements, okay?
Mhm.
It's developing that confidence within bringing out their feminine side, bringing out and saying it's okay, like encouraging that and
Yeah.
celebrating it. Because depending on, again, who you're surrounded by, and sometimes you don't get to choose it necessarily if it is a job, that
Mm.
it's very important to me that not everyone does come from a runway background. Not everyone comes from a bodybuilding background.
Mhm.
There's so many different backgrounds and also just when they're even starting and getting into it, or maybe they have been seasoned, but things are evolving. You have a whole new women's division, which is exciting. Like there's just so many variables that sure, like runway helps for me personally, but I hone into each individual and where they're at in life and what they want out of it and how much more I can bring to them, to share with them, to pull from them ultimately, and then have it presented on stage. But the like my girls, I it doesn't just start or stop at the stage. It's an all day thing or all day. It's all day, every day. This is sort of changing your entire life and how you present yourself as a female. So I've
Mhm.
had girls who actually don't even compete and have come to me for posing practice just because they want that confidence and be able to present better and walk prouder.
Wow. That's really interesting to hear that actually because, we hear about lifestyle coaching, of course, but it's rare you'd hear about like posing for confidence building as a service, I guess you could say. But that's honestly just incredible. And I can also attest to the fact that every time I pose, I feel so good in my skin. Like I feel so good about myself. So I could see why that would create that, especially for whether or not they're, not used to tapping into their feminine side or they've just never been in a position to carry themselves that way. It is so confidence building to expose yourself to movement that's new and then to be able to master it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I joke too because the traditional, as I call it, bikini posture is not what
Mm.
normal, average human beings, that's not how they traditionally stand up. So it's kind of, your glutes are slightly out and
Yeah.
chest up, and you're kind of told not to do that, right?
Mhm.
But it's twisting that mentality and being proud of what and who you are.
I love that. And I imagine you've probably been very rewarded seeing people's posture change, like the way they carry themselves from maybe being inward to feeling
Yeah.
good about standing up tall and straight, and they walk into the room maybe different or they show up on Zoom different because you've supported them in feeling that.
Absolutely. That yeah, to me, that is some of the biggest rewards or accomplishments, I would say, even just, again, getting into this industry, it wasn't just about me competing, it was more of the opportunities that opened up for me, that aligned with me and allowed me to impact others in such a positive way. So being able to have any woman confidently present themselves and not just surface level, but they truly now believe it as they should. And that's where it ultimately, I think, is a huge accomplishment and what I strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you go in with that intention, they're more likely to feel that energy too and desire it for themselves. So I just think that's beautiful, and I'm curious, this is just curiosity killed the cat moment. What was your career prior, or what is your career now as you're transitioning into, this, just business full time?
Sure. So I'm actually a director of event planning and operations for
Hmm.
a luxury hotel brand.
Wow. That really does have, like, nothing to do, but that's a great superpower. I can think of how that's gonna really benefit the industry, though.
It's huge. Yeah, and the funny thing too is actual shows, so certain shows like in Anaheim or any of them that are at hotels,
Oh.
that's essentially I'm on the hotel side assisting, planning, setting up,
Wow.
going in. So like my you see like doctors, nurses, police officers, firemen, like certain people that have crazy schedules as far as very long hours or overnight shift or whatever. But my industry, my profession at the moment, and this is, I won my pro card doing this. I've been doing
Okay.
this the entire time. But it is one of the most stressful careers. It's extremely demanding on my time, on my energy, and because I am at a very, very, very well-known luxury hotel, the guests that I experience, they expect a lot, and so the
Mhm.
cool thing is when I do transition over, I still feel like all my clients or competitors are luxury competitors, and I expect a lot from them, but I expect a lot from me for them and to be able to give them that service. And I've been in this industry of personalization, customization, and that's what I will continue on with is those and certain structured processes that just really work. So it's certainly prepped me to now go into this new profession, but it is, yes, very
Mhm.
different.
Yeah, it is, but it's such a wonderful thing, like you said, the high demands and running a business is the same thing, especially when people are investing in a service, which you're
Mhm.
no stranger to the customer service side of things. It sounds like it's been a great career, but that your passion is now calling you to your business fully.
Correct.
That's so cool. Well, I'm excited to see what is in store for you. Do you have any particular plans for next year for competing?
There is still talks. So the schedule came out, I don't know, a week or two ago.
Uh-huh.
And because I'm in Miami, I competed in the Miami Pro. That was one of my last pro shows before going on a like 2-year hiatus off. So I
Yeah.
really would love to compete in the Miami Pro, which is now May 24th next year.
Uh-huh.
It was in June, so kind of seeing if that aligns with timing wise. But my coach now, who is basically, he will not let me compete unless I am ready, and not just ready,
Yeah.
competitive. So he doesn't wanna put me on stage unless I am going on in my best. So I
Uh-huh.
do still need time because the time that I had away from training consistently, eating consistently, it did actually I lost some muscle that I need. I still have areas that I really need to continue to develop. So we're just in this phase of, okay, ultimately, I would love to be able to be ready for that May 24th and start off with Miami since I live here and it's in my
Mhm.
backyard. And then doing some other East Coast shows, and then coming back over to the West Coast with my friends and my bodybuilding family there. And then possibly going, like I said, I really want to do, I think it's more fall or later in the year, like Vietnam or
Wow.
one of those. So I want to do that. One and two, it's once I do go full time coaching and assisting with the team, I want to see what competitors, maybe match up with pro shows. So I can always get into a pro show that a lot of our competitors are in as well.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting, and I'm excited to just follow along and see you hit the stage again. And I'd love to wrap up the episode by getting your best advice. So, what is your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for somebody who's on their road to pro?
Never competed. I would say trust your coach. Definitely get a coach and trust them and enjoy the process. So don't have any sort of specific expectations of placing necessarily.
Mhm.
Obviously, expect to do your best and bring your best. Trust your coach, listen to them, but enjoy the process and soak up each and every moment. It does end up going by quick. So even if there are very hard, kind of sucky times, embrace the suck and enjoy every single moment, because once it's show day, it kind of becomes a blur. That's why right before stage, try to reflect and remember the process and your why and just have fun.
Yeah.
For anyone that is going to become a pro, that again, I can't express more about visualizing what that means to you and how that feels when that moment happens, and truly put yourself on stage, front and center, smiling big, however your hair is, to the point that you are taking pictures with top 5 and you're number 1 or just the first place. What does that picture, how are you posing in that? Like every single little detail, put that together and feel it and practice it and visualize it and do what it takes, the necessary training, the necessary diet regimen, but whatever that looks like to you, become that, and then you
Mhm.
will become that.
I love that. That's such great advice all the way around, and something that I do hope gets applied along with everything else that you've shared and the incredible journey you've been on. I think there's so much to take away from that. So, that being said, how can people connect with you, follow you, and also work with you?
Absolutely. So right now, I just have my Instagram, which is fit underscore the number 4 underscore and then peach ASS,
Hmm.
uh, for peaches. That, and then I am working on website, all of that to come, but right now just through IG.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's wonderful. We'll put all of that in the show notes page. You guys make sure you check that out. It's always on celestial.fit/podcast. When you are listening, if you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. You won't just find the links to connect with us, but you're also going to find a full summary of this episode, all the bulleted list of topics we've covered, yes, and then an episode timestamp sheet. So you'll be able to go back and listen to your favorite parts or refer it to your teammates, your friends, your family, Let them know what stood out to you or what resonated. And of course, tag us when you listen. It always means so much to me, obviously, to the growth of the podcast, and more importantly, to the journey of the athlete and their willingness to share. So that is a thank you in advance for doing that. And thank you all for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.